EQ and compression. What the heck are these things? And as a videographer, why should you even care about it? Friend, today's going to be a good one. To say that I've been obsessed with audio for most of my life is something of an understatement. For as long as I can remember, I have considered myself a musician. I seem to have this knack of picking up a guitar, picking up a piano. Actually, that would be impressive. You don't pick up a piano, typically you sit at it. Either way, I would have this idea for what I want that instrument to sound like, and I would just sit down and I would push enough buttons until I made it make the sound that I wanted it to sound like. Now that I say that out loud, I realize that's more persistence than it is musicianship. Either way, I stuck with it. I got better over time. And as I got older, I became more interested in music production and I wanted to figure out how to create my own songs and layer tracks and do all that fun stuff. But that brought about an entirely new set of frustrations because I couldn't figure out why my songs didn't sound anything like the songs I was hearing on the radio. And so, friend, I dove headfirst in educating myself in all things music and audio production, figuring out how to mix properly, to master properly, and utilize all these sweetening tools to bring my music to life. And I gotta say, I did improve over time. But there was a big part of me that was investing in better instruments. I was investing in better microphones, like this studio mic you see here behind me, which, fun fact, in the next part of this video, I'm actually going to be using that. So you'll be able to hear the direct difference between that and my shotgun mic. However, the point remains there were two really powerful tools that I kept coming back to in music production, but these same two tools I use in every single one of my videos to sweeten up some of the dialogue no matter what environment I'm in. And that is, of course, EQ or equalization, equalizer, and compression. So what actually are these? Now, you saw me holding up my guitar pedals at the beginning of this video. So this is just a good this is a good visualization of how compression works. Now, imagine audio as a waveform, right? I'll do the Squidward thing. Sorry, that's really distracting. Imagine audio as a waveform, and that waveform is going to be extremely dynamic, especially speech, or if you're recording a rock band and playing guitar and you've got different tones and things coming in, they're going to be really, really loud, harsh parts, and they're going to be really soft, quiet parts as well. The same is true for the spoken word. And so a compressor's job, if you will, is to take the highs and bring them closer to the center, and take the lows and bring them up closer to the center, so that when you're playing this back, you don't have these spikes in audio that blow your eardrums out, and you also don't have this floor, this quietness that's so soft that you can't even make out what's being said or played. And so a compressor's job is to pull in the signal, bring up the lows, bring down the highs, basically kind of squash that waveform if you want. It compresses it, right? So that everything is more even across the board. Now, when we go to our EQ, I have here with me a 7-band equalizer, and this is actually what I'm going to be walking through in Premiere Pro in just a minute too, so this is a perfect example. But each of these little knobs, and don't worry, I know this is really small. What I want you to see is going to be on my computer in a bit here. Each of these sits at a certain frequency range. This ranges from 100 to 6400 hertz. And so at each of those frequencies on the low end and on the high end here, there are certain nuances in speech or in music that either need to be boosted or scooped out. That is what an EQ is designed to do. Sometimes you need to boost a little bit of the high end to bring out the clarity and the crisp and brightness of someone's voice. Sometimes you need to scoop out a bit of the low end to filter out some of the bass or kind of some of the low hum. Maybe there's an air conditioner in the room and you just have that drone in the background. Scooping out some of those lower frequencies is a really good way to kind of hide or at least get rid of some of the distracting tones that are there. So very high level overview of what a compressor and an EQ does for a guitar, for a musician, or even for speech. But what I'd like to do right now is actually take the audio that you're hearing right now in this intro, and I'm gonna put it in Adobe Premiere Pro, and I will walk you through the tools that I'll be using. I'm gonna pull up a single band compressor and show you the settings that I'll use. There are actually some presets in there that are really good that I can show you how that works from a compressor standpoint, and then we'll jump to a 7-band parametric equalizer, and I'll show you what I'm doing there as well, specifically as it pertains to speech or dialogue and video. If there's one thing that you need to take away from this entire video, it's that less is more. So if you're gonna start manipulating audio, just remember that in the back of your mind. We don't need to be cranking things way up or scooping things way down. That's gonna make a big, big difference. So less is always more. But with that said, friend, let's jump to the computer. I want to show you exactly how this works because I really do think it'll be a game changer in your next video. So let's dive in. The first thing I like to do every time I open Premiere Pro is just to show you what version I'm using. Today we're in version 25.6.4. Now I have to say, it's not going to matter what version you're using. Every single version of Premiere Pro is going to contain some kind of compressor or equalizer. So the version really doesn't matter, but in case you're following along, I do think that's important. Now today I'm in the audio workspace. So if your layout looks a little different in Premiere, you can always click this little box in the top right and scroll down. You may have defaulted to the editing workspace or color, captions and graphics. Today we're going to be in audio because that is of course what we're talking about. And if you look to the left of my screen, you see I have this audio track mixer. I've got a couple of faders with some levels here. This is the audio that we're going to be working with. This is where we're going to do most of our work. Now, all I've done so far is pull in the footage and audio that came directly out of my camera. So that's what you're seeing down here in blue at the bottom. Let's go ahead and just listen to this for a second. My camera was probably about 6 feet away from me, so you're going to hear some of the room noise. I just want to give you a preview of what this looks like from the very beginning when I pull that footage directly into my computer. Let's take a listen. What the heck are these things? And as a videographer, why should you even care about it? Friend, today's going to be a good one. All right, you get the idea. Not super great audio, but we're going to fix that real quick. The first thing we're going to do before we even get to EQ and compression, we're going to go to our audio folder, and you'll see I have here my external audio. This is the audio that was captured with my shotgun mic. I'm just going to pull that right onto my timeline. So now I have everything in green is my external mic. I just got to highlight both of these clips, right click and go to synchronize, hit enter and watch Premiere Pro do its thing. And just like that, I have now synced up my audio. So I'm just going to trim the ends here so that we're working with the same size clip. There we go. And now, so we're not listening to both sources at one time, I'll just click mute on that first track. So this is muting the audio from my camera. Now all that you're going to be hearing is directly out of my shotgun mic. What the heck are these things? And as a videographer, why should you even care about it? So you can already tell the level is much louder. Part of that is because the mic was much closer to my face, but it's also much more sensitive and better at capturing that good clear audio. So we have a much better start than what we were coming from. I'll just play these back and toggle so you can see the differences between the two because I think that is kind of fun. Friend, today's going to be a good one. To say that I've been obsessed with audio for most of my life is something of an understatement. For as long as I can remember, I've considered myself a musician. I seem to have this knack of picking up a guitar, We're already in a good spot, so we'll save that. Now, we want to do some compression. I always start with a compressor in my signal chain before moving on to EQ. I like to get the audio levels correct before I start tweaking any of the frequencies. And part of that is because the louder the volume, the louder the gain of the audio that you're hearing, it can mess with your ears. It can make you think that you're hearing something that's a little different. So as long as we get the levels set accurately, when we jump to our EQ, we can make some good accurate decisions there as well. So if you are looking at the audio workspace, you go up to the top, there's a teeny tiny arrow here. It says show/hide effects and sends. You'll want to click that and it's going to open up these little boxes here. Now, this first track corresponds with my first audio track in blue down here at the bottom of my timeline, but we've muted that track, so you're not going to see anything coming up here. The second track now corresponds to audio 2, aka the green on my timeline, and that is the audio that we're going to be messing with. That's the audio that we're going to add some compression and some EQ. So let's go ahead and get started with our compressor. I like to keep things simple. I just click the drop down. You go to amplitude and compression right here at the top and scroll all the way down to what is called a single band compressor. Now, depending on the version you're using of Adobe Premiere Pro, you may have more, you may have less, but from what I have seen over the last 6+ years of using Adobe Premiere Pro, these have pretty much remained the same. So I like using the single band compressor because it's simple to use. So go ahead and click that. Now, all it does is put that in this first little box, this first compartment here. If we double click on that, it's going to open up the plugin. So now you see I have these nice little sliders down here, but not a whole lot is going on. There's not anything happening to the audio. It's just, we've just included the compressor into the mix. So the first thing that I'll do, just to give me a good jumping off point, especially when I'm trying to move quickly, I'll go to this drop down and I just go down to either vocal leveler, If the audio is a little bit all over the place, if it's a little high or a little low, and I just want to kind of bring things back in, I'll go to vocal leveler. If it's really quiet audio, I may use the vocal booster, and this preset just helps lift a lot of that gain. I'm just going to go to the vocal leveler. That's the one I use most often. And I'll play this back for you. You may not notice a difference, but I'm going to toggle it on and off just to show you what's going on here. Up a piano. Actually, that would be impressive. You don't pick up a piano. Typically, you sit at it. Either way, I would have this idea for what I want that instrument to sound like, and I would just sit down. So not a whole lot is going on here. So let's go ahead and talk through what some of these things are within your compressor, starting with threshold. Now, at the beginning of this video, I talked about how a compressor is designed to squash the audio. It brings down the highs, it lifts the lows, it tries to get everything more closely aligned to that central line so that everything is more consistent. Well, the threshold is how much of the audio it's going to be bringing toward that center. So the stronger the threshold, the more you bring this down, you can see it's pulling out negative 25 decibels. That's a lot. That's a considerable amount of threshold. So I'm just going to exaggerate this a little bit just so you can see what is going on in real time. So I pulled this all the way down, 46 decibels, and watch what's going to happen. This is going to be super quiet and very difficult to hear. And I would push enough buttons until I made it make the sound that I wanted it to sound like. And I'll turn it off. Now that I say that out loud, I realize that's more persistence than it is musicianship. Either way, so all we've done at this point is just squash the audio. We just pulled the life out of it. I find that the best threshold is usually somewhere in the -10 to -12 range. You really don't want to go too far with it. As I said in the beginning, less is more with all audio tweaks. So let's go to -12. Now, what's happening next is the ratio. Ratio is the strength of that squeeze. Again, we're not just bringing the highs down, we're also lifting the lows. So how strong is that threshold going to be? That's where the ratio comes in. For example, this is a 12-to-1 ratio. That means for every 12 decibels that are being pulled out, we're letting 1 decibel get through. So you see how that's the strength, that's the squishiness, the grip of the threshold. Now, next on the list is our attack. This one is set in milliseconds. This is going to be how fast your threshold or how fast your compressor goes into action to take that signal and either pull it down or lift it up. I'm just going to leave it right here at 0. I want it to hit right out of the gate. I don't want it to take any time. If you have too slow of an attack, it's going to start loud and slowly get quieter. It'll start quiet, slowly get louder. We just want all of our audio to sound more consistent. So I'm going to leave that right here at 0 milliseconds. And then of course the release is just the opposite of that. We've squished that audio. We're squeezing that audio waveform. The release is how quickly we're going to let that go. 100 milliseconds is almost undetectable, and I'm comfortable with leaving it just right there. The next important thing to know is what this output gain here at the bottom does. As we're scooping out audio, you saw just in my example at -46 decibels, we're making some of that audio quieter. It's harder to hear. We're taking some of that life out of it. So the output gain is basically coming along behind that. We've leveled our audio. We've made it more consistent. But if it's quieter, we need to bring the level back so that it's appropriate, so that it matches other videos on YouTube, or if you're listening on a podcast or something like that, we want our audio to sit better in the mix next to others out there in the audio space. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to turn my compressor back on. I'm going to hit play, listen to this, and what I'll be looking for as I pull up that output gain is I want my level to come somewhere around 75% up this meter here at the right. So anywhere between this -18 to -6 range, I'm really aiming for -12 decibels here. Somewhere around 75% up that meter is a really good place to be. So let's see what this looks like. I stuck with it. I got better over time. And as I got older, I became more interested in music production. And I wanted to figure out how to create my own songs and layer tracks and do all that fun stuff. But that brought about an entirely new set of frustrations because I couldn't figure out why my songs didn't sound anything like the songs I was hearing on the radio. So I think that sounds really good so far. Let's just toggle this on and off. I'll show you the before and after we added our compressor. Let's go right here. I've been obsessed with audio for most of my life is something of an understatement. For as long as I can remember, I have considered myself a musician. I seem to have this knack of picking up a guitar, picking up a piano. Actually, that would be impressive. You don't pick up a piano, typically you sit at it. Okay, I think you get the idea there. What you're noticing, it probably just sounds a little bit louder, but what's actually happening here is the audio waveform has gotten more consistent. It's more closely aligned to that center line. The lows are not too low, the highs are not too high, and we've just brought up a bit of that output gain so that we're hitting a level. When we go out into the world, when we put this on YouTube, we're hitting a level that will more closely match other videos that we're seeing out there. Now that we've got our compression set, it's finally time to jump to the EQ. So we can close out of this. Let's go back up to our column here for audio 2 because that's the waveform that we are working with today. Click the drop down and scroll down to this section called filter and EQ. If we go down, there are several options here. You see there's a graphic equalizer of 30 bands. Friend, that is way too complex for what we're trying to do here. We are just trying to clean up some pretty darn good dialogue right out of the gate. So we just need something simple here. There are smaller versions, and of course there are larger versions. I typically will use this parametric equalizer here. And if we double click that and open it up, you see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bands to work with. Now this is just a flat line. All we've done is connect an equalizer to our audio, but it's not doing anything to the audio source. Once again, we can click the drop down and choose whichever preset works well for us. Obviously you can manipulate things as you prefer, but when I'm moving quickly, I like to use a preset that gets me very close to what I'm looking for, and then I'll make a few minor adjustments from there. Now, did I record an acoustic guitar? No, I did not. I didn't record a beefy snare. I didn't do a kick drum or heavy guitar. I am just speaking into a microphone. So I'll go down to this preset called Vocal Enhancer. And you're going to see it automatically scoops out the low ends because our human voice range typically does not fall anywhere in this range. And then what it's doing is lifting this high-end frequency above 10,000 hertz. And that is lifting, that's bringing a lot of the brightness and clarity of my voice. If it's too high, you'll start to hear a lot of like the lip smacking, the crackling of the lips and the mouth, because it's pulling a lot of that high-end frequency. So I will typically bring this down. Again, right from the beginning, I said less is more, but I just want to show you from an exaggerated perspective. I'm going to go through a lot of these different points and move them around just to show you what's happening at different frequency ranges. Let's take a listen to what this sounds like.
Friend, today's going to be a good one. To say that I've been obsessed with audio for most of my life is something of an understatement. For as long as I can remember, I have considered myself a musician. I seem to have this knack of picking up a guitar, picking up a piano. Actually, that would be impressive. You don't pick up a piano, typically you sit at it. Either way, I would have this idea for what I want that instrument to sound like, and I would just sit down and I would push enough buttons until I made it make the sound that I wanted it to sound like. Now that I say that out loud, I realize that's more persistence than it is musicianship. Either way, I stuck with it. I got better over time. And as I got older, I became more interested in music production, and I wanted to figure out how to create my own songs and layer tracks and do all that fun stuff. But that brought about an entirely new set of frustrations because I couldn't figure out why my songs didn't sound anything like the songs I was hearing on the radio. And so, friend, I dove headfirst in educating myself in all things music.
Okay, I think you get the idea there, and that's starting to sound pretty good. One thing that is great about an equalizer is because you get so many different points to tweak, you can sweep around. If there is a frequency that just doesn't sound right to your ears, you can actually just grab one of these points. You can change what's called the Q or the width of that point. So maybe I'll make it a bit more narrow, kind of like a little peak there of a mountain. And then you can just drag it while the audio is playing, move it back and forth until you find that buzzy, unnecessary frequency, and then you can just gently scoop it out. So for example, I'm not feeling that for this one, but just to give you an example, if we hit play,
Music and audio production, figuring out how to mix properly, to master properly, and utilize all these sweetening tools to...
So let's say I wanted to pull things out right at this frequency. This is right around the 2100 mark. I would just simply pull this down while the audio is playing
to bring my music to life. And I gotta say, I did improve over time.
And I would leave it right there. Friend, again, you don't want to be making large adjustments when it comes to audio because when you export this, it's just going to be exaggerated. So less is always more. This is how I would be using an EQ and compressor. I do this in every single one of my videos, whether I'm speaking, someone else is speaking. This helps filter out background noise if you've got some air conditioning as well. As a bonus, I will show you one additional tool that you have built right into Premiere Pro, and that is under this
noise reduction and restoration category, you can go to denoise. Go ahead and click that, double click it, find a preset. Let's say light noise reduction. I felt like I was hearing a little background noise here. And we're just gonna toggle this on and off. I'm gonna start with it off, and I'm gonna turn it on and see if it gets rid of some of the room reflections that I was hearing. Let's take a listen here.
But there was a big part of me that was investing in better instruments. I was investing in better microphones, like this studio mic you see here behind me, which, fun fact, in the next part of this video, I'm actually going to be using that. So you'll be able to hear the direct difference between that and my shotgun mic. However, the point remains, there were two really powerful tools that I kept coming back to in music production, but these same tools, these same two tools I use in every single one of my videos to sweeten up some of the.
And there you have it. I'm pretty happy with what that sounds like. Friend, you don't need to make this a whole big thing. You just got to get in, play around with the settings, get comfortable using compression and EQ, and your audio is going to go a long, long way.
Well, friend, you don't have to get this perfectly every single time, but please promise me you will not skip the audio phase. I know this is one that's often overlooked. I know as us, as filmmakers, as videographers, we put a lot of attention to the detail in our image quality, making sure that it is clean and crisp without any noise. But ironically, we use those same words to describe our audio, and audio is so critical to the video component because we also want our audio to sound clean and clear and crisp without any unwanted background noise. And it is so, so important to the production, the quality of your video. If this is helpful, drop me a like because that just lets me know that I'm on the right track, that I am delivering good, valuable content for you. If you have any questions about audio production, I've told you I've been obsessed with this my whole life, so please leave a comment and I would be happy to help out any way that I can. And friend, if you want to learn more about video production as a whole, even beyond the microphones, beyond the audio cleanup, go to guidedproductions.com/bettervideoguide. Download your free copy of the 6 steps to creating better video. I walk you through the entire production process from idea to export, helping you navigate the entire video journey so that you never miss a step. You don't have to question anything. In fact, I even give you a downloadable checklist at the very end, and you can follow along with every single production so you never miss that step. Just go to guidedproductions.com/bettervideoguide. Friend, I really appreciate the time that you spend hanging out with me. I learn a ton from all of you, and hopefully you're getting a bit from me as well. Have a great day, freshen up your audio, and I will see you on another video real soon.